Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. I'm Sally Burdett, live from Johannesburg. Your top stories this evening.
I want to make it clear that the national government is not taking on Eskom's debt. Eskom took debt in the first place. It must ultimately repay it.
I'm Devin Murugan in Cape Town, bringing you the latest from Finance Minister Tito Mbowene's budget speech.
And Lawrence Mkhwebi, the suspended head of the Specialised Commercial Crimes Court, comes out fighting at the Commission, probing his fitness for office, defending his decision to drop charges against former crime intelligence boss Richard Mdluli. Finance Minister Tito Mboweni delivered his 2019 budget speech this afternoon in Parliament, and he says government is not taking on Eskom's debt, but definitely supporting the power utility to the tune of 69 billion rand over the next 3 years. That's the first big takeout from the speech. Also, a huge chunk of money allocated for education, and an increase in the fuel levy and the so-called sin taxes on cigarettes and alcohol. But first, let's listen to what the minister said about Eskom.
The national government is not taking on Eskom's debt. Let me repeat that. I want to make it clear that the national government is not taking on Eskom's debt. Eskom took debt in the first place. It must ultimately repay it. We are setting aside 23 billion rand a year to financially support Eskom during its reconfiguration.
Well, let me bring in our business anchor in Cape Town, Devin Murugan, now. Good evening to you, Devin. Thank you so much for joining us. So clearly the minister is giving financial support, which is essentially a bailout for Eskom. Very clear that they need to sort out their own debt problems. What has Eskom said in response to the announcement by the finance minister?
Good evening, Sally. Well, I actually spoke to the Eskom CEO, Phakamani Radebe, moments after that speech. You will remember that one of the big moves or conditions that the finance minister put on lending Eskom this money, or giving it financial support of 69 billion rand over 3 years, as you say, is he says there will be a chief reorganization officer within Eskom, essentially monitoring and making sure that they implement some changes as recommended by the government task team. The CEO of Eskom telling me that they welcome that, and their next move now would be to try and sort out Eskom in terms of its operations. Not a fantastic figure to help Eskom, but it does ease the burden.
So very strict conditions there. Does this mean the lights are going to stay on after March?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. Much of that involves the work and progress they make on maintaining those power stations, on ensuring that operations go forward. That is in the hands of Eskom. I mean, I would imagine that that money would go some way to easing that, but not for long, Sally.
Yes, indeed. Well, the minister also posed a very serious question about the need for state-owned enterprises in general. A number of them, of course, are struggling. Let's take a listen to that clip.
The SOEs pose very serious risks to the fiscal framework. Funding requests from SAA, SABC, DINEL, Eskom, and other financially challenged state-owned enterprises have increased, with several requesting state support just to continue operating. Isn't it about time that the country asks itself the question, do we still need all these enterprises?
And that, of course, is the big question. Cheers there for that question, but obviously privatisation, or any allusion towards privatisation, is going to be met with huge opposition.
Yeah, no guess where he stands, Sally, on the issue of state-owned enterprises that are not performing. I mean, just hours before he delivered that budget speech, he told SAFTU members demonstrating outside whether or not, he asked them, they would invest money in SAA or a railway service like Praso, which is more practical to them and can have better output. So I think that indeed we know exactly where he stands. The word privatization was not in this budget speech, but certainly this move towards getting equity partners and making them independent is there. So we are likely to see a move closer to that phenomena.
Let's move now to education, because of course that received the lion's share of the budget. Take a listen.
Fully subsidized education training for the poor is the government's flagship higher education intervention. Over the medium term, government will spend 111.2 billion rand to ensure that 2.8 million deserving students from poor and working class backgrounds obtain their qualifications at universities and TVET colleges.
Of course, that is great news, Devon. Let's move on, though, to the issues that are going to affect our pockets directly. And, of course, there's good news. First of all, no changes to personal income tax brackets. There's an increase in social grants. But on the downside, an increase in the fuel levy and the sin taxes. So, Devon, you'll be paying 12 cents more for a beer come April. Tell me, how hard is that fuel levy, which is 29 cents a litre, going to hit the consumer, bearing in mind that we're being warned about a fuel price increase as well next month?
Indeed, and we're going to feel that fuel price increase either way, Sally. Remember, the rand is weakening much weaker than it was at the end of last year. The oil price is up above $60 a barrel. Those two factors are the main factors increasing your fuel price. But then we get this levy being implemented in April. So over and above this, transportation for South Africans indeed is going to be much more expensive after April. There's no escaping that. So yes, indeed, we escaped the big key tax categories, as you say, income tax, corporate tax and VAT. But this budget is still a pinch in the pockets of South Africans.
Devon, very quickly, is this enough to satisfy the ratings agencies who are watching us with a hawk eye?
That's a very close, very good question there, Sally. I mean, at the end of the day, the ratings agencies say that they want to see growth pick up in this country. They say if government helps the SOEs, it wants to see structural reforms in these SOEs. And going back to our first question about the Chief Reorganization Officer, well, I guess Tito Mboweni, the Finance Minister, is trying to sort of please them by actually installing this. Whether it's enough, analysts don't think this budget will actually prevent us from getting a downgrade. And a quick one, remember that Moody's is the only one of three agencies that still have us on investment grade. A drop from them would be dire for the rand value and its consequences.
Thank you very much, Devon Murigan in Cape Town. Well, that's a wrap of the big takeouts from the budget. How did it go down with the opposition? Let's take a look.
Firstly, South Africa faces a very difficult stage now. What has become very clear is that instead of taking bold and decisive action on Eskom, we've allocated more bailouts. Even though you can talk about education, the fact of the matter is that he's taken money away from provinces whose core competence is to deliver education. This was a lipstick budget. It made it look pretty on the outside, but frankly, it's dealt with nothing. We need a plan that will deliver jobs, and ultimately, I don't want us to debate whether we should hold on to SOEs or not. We should be selling them.
No clear plans on job creation, no clear plans on what's going to happen to the land expropriation. To want to sell an idea that we can sell the state-owned enterprises, we'll never agree to that. We need those assets. Those are strategic assets. Some of them, their purpose of existence is not to make profit. It's to ensure that our people benefit from those state-owned enterprises.
Overall, we are in trouble. There's no money. The government debt has gotten out of hand. That much is clear, because even if you were to look at the budget deficit, including your debt to GDP ratio, all of that has increased. But what I didn't hear from the minister, is how the ANC intends to pay back the money which was channeled via Busasa and that they used for their rallies, because they need to start from there, including the Hitachi money that was channeled to the... If they are serious about fighting corruption and getting people to pay back the money that they stole from the state, they must start with the ANC.
We borrow 1.2 billion a day, but the interest alone is 1 billion. We welcome the wage bill of government that is going to be cut to 27 billion annually. But we also say that they should have looked at the senior management also of state departments to not allow any further increases, because, for instance, a municipal manager gets in certain places more than the president.
Well, as you know, I was involved in the Eskom inquiry, and it is absolutely disgraceful that 69 billion rand is given to Eskom. Whilst it is understandable under the new board, the previous state capture and corruption, which we exposed, has not yet been dealt with. We need to recover that money that was stolen, and then the taxpayer would not have to foot the bill to keep the lights on. I'm not so sure whether this will be successful given the trade unions' opposition, but we wish them everything the best with reconfigurating Eskom.
Eskom will certainly need everything of the best. In other news, dropping corruption charges against former crime intelligence boss Richard Mdluli was the right call. That's what suspended prosecutor Lawrence Mrwebi has told the Mogoro inquiry. That inquiry has been set up to probe whether Mrwebi and former prosecution's boss Nomgcobo Jiba are fit to hold office. Now, according to Mrwebi, who started his much-anticipated testimony today, when he pressed prosecutor Glynis Breitenbach to produce evidence directly linking Mdluli to wrongdoing, there wasn't any.
One of the immediate things reading through the document, all these transactions were not done by Mr. Mdluli or General Mdluli. These transactions were done by somebody else. I went through the docket to find evidence, maybe to link Mdluli to say maybe he was part of this. There was no such evidence in the docket. There was, even though these transactions were done by Mr. Barnett, who was the accused of Mr. Mdluli, there was no evidence in the docket to say Mr. Mdluli had knowledge of these transactions.
Still ahead on eNews, apart from all the budget number crunching, there's some good news on the inflation front. It's declined in January. Those details coming up. Let's get your business news now. And the talking point, of course, the national budget delivered in Parliament today. The big news, a financial support plan for Eskom, 69 billion rand over the next 3 years, but with strict conditions. On the downside, we'll have to grapple with a 29 cents a litre increase in the fuel levy from April and a likely fuel price hike next month. So a double whammy there. But some relief for consumers with inflation figures announced today. They are down from 4.5% in December to just 4% last month. Dimakatso Tugwana has those details.
The 0.5% decrease in inflation was a result of the lower fuel price, which dropped 0.9% month on month. But the relief for consumers might just be for the short term.
As things stand now, we're looking at an increase in the price of petrol of well over 50 cents per litre at the beginning of March, because oil prices have risen from $60 to $66 a barrel, and the rand has weakened against the dollar.
Cheaper food also helped the CPI.
That is largely on account of the fall in the price of the inflation rate of meat arising out of, I think, the fact that a lot of farmers sent their cattle to slaughter when they heard that there was an outbreak of foot and mouth disease in the northern regions of the country.
The rand has weakened somewhat in the last few weeks. This, together with the expected increases in fuel and food prices, doesn't bode well for the inflation outlook. Consumers might again come under pressure in the coming months. However, economists don't expect the Reserve Bank to hike interest rates when it meets next month. Dimakatso Tugwana, Johannesburg.
Let's take a quick look at the markets now. International news now. And British Prime Minister Theresa May's had yet another setback. 3 MPs have quit her Conservative Party over her handling of Brexit. They're joining a new group set up by 7 politicians who left the opposition Labour Party earlier this week. This further undermines May's support in Parliament, where her Brexit deal was crushed last month. She's vowed to press on before Britain is due to leave the European Union on March the 29th. Now, today she was in Brussels hoping to convince the EU Commission President to reopen talks. Protesters and sex abuse survivors are gathering in Rome ahead of a historic summit on the sex scandals that have rocked the Roman Catholic Church. Nearly 200 church leaders from around the world will attend the 4-day meeting at the Vatican. The church has been accused of covering up crimes committed by priests around the world. Protesters say they are angry with the Pope's slow response to the crisis. Ahead, we'll get your weather news from Cape Town with Louis standing by there. Hi, Louis. And then a Cape Town dance crew taking their skills to the next level. They're going to the United States to compete in the International Dance World Championship. Let's head down to Cape Town once more. Louis Fernandez standing by with your weather. Good evening to you, Louis. What have you got for us?
Good evening, Sally. Well, things are still quite settled over South Africa at the moment, but there is a bit of a change taking place as we head into tomorrow, thanks to a high-pressure system ridging along the country's coastline. That's going to start pushing in some moisture, so a bit of cloud for the coastal provinces to start off the day, maybe a bit of fog further into the interior. And that high pressure also brings in the fuel in the form of that moisture that's needed for a few more thunderstorms to develop over the eastern interior on Thursday afternoon. As those thunderstorms start to dissipate in the evening, they'll be replaced by on and off light rain for parts of KwaZulu-Natal, the Eastern Cape interior, and even along the escarpment areas of Mpumalanga. But let's take a look at your city forecast for tomorrow. And in the Northern Cape, it stays mostly hot and dry with temperatures deep into the 30s in the afternoon hours. And it will also be a hot day for the interior of the Western Cape, but fairly cloudy in the south, especially in the morning. That will keep things a little bit cooler after a little bit of drizzle in the area as well. A few thunder showers for the Drakensberg areas of the Eastern Cape, while light rain is possible closer to the coastline, as well as for Makhanda, Bishu and Mthatha. Thunderstorms returning to many areas in KwaZulu-Natal. It's going to be a much cooler day in the province with temperatures managing to stay below 30. And there'll also be a few thunder showers on the Mpumalanga Highveld, but as is often the case, the Lowveld stays dry and very hot. Another dry and hot day for Limpopo, 34 degrees as a maximum temperature for Thohoyandou. And if you're going to be in the northwest, you can expect sweltering conditions with temperatures in the mid to upper 30s across the province. Crossing over into the Free State, just a few thunder showers in the far eastern parts, including around Harrismith. And then for Gauteng, it will be another partly cloudy and hot day, above 30 for Johannesburg, and a very small chance of thunder showers in the area, but it's more than likely going to stay dry. Let's take a look at what your Friday brings to your parts of South Africa, and we're going to see stormy conditions for parts of KZN as well as for Mpumalanga. Only isolated storms on the other hand for the Highveld, while in the west it's going to be hot and dry. And then for the start of the weekend, thunder showers in the far east, while in the west the high temperatures and dry weather persist. That's all from the Weather Centre. Sally, it's back to you.
Thank you very much, Louis in Cape Town. And finally, a dance crew from Cape Town is proving to be hip and happening. Their skills have earned them a spot in an International Dance World Championship taking place in America late this year. Tanya Neft went to check out their moves.
An open field ordinarily used to play ball, yet this time it's been turned into a dance studio where they're kicking up some serious dust. Exo Empire has danced their way into a spot at the International Hip Hop World Championship in Phoenix, Arizona later this year. That was after winning first, second and third place in the local rounds.
I'm feeling super excited because, I mean, it's another country, it's way far from home, so like, it's scary, but I mean, it's exciting to go over to, especially USA, to see what happens, because that's where actually hip-hop started.
For many of these kids, it'll be their first time abroad. But with a lack of funding, they'll have to try cough up the money themselves.
I'm really excited. I never went overseas, but I hope I can go. I'm actually nervous, but I'm glad we kind of getting the opportunity to go overseas for this.
This group is certainly moving in the right direction. Not only will they be hip-hopping over to the States soon to prove their worth, they're also showing that everyone, no matter how old, can crumb together. Tanyanef, Cape Town. Yeah!
Well, budgets may be tight, but at least we can dance. Let's just recap your top story before we go.
I want to make it clear that national government is not taking on Eskom's debt. Eskom took debt in the first place. It must ultimately repay it.
But Finance Minister Tito Mboweni does allocate 69 billion rand over the next 3 years to help Eskom service its debt. From me and the team, it's a very good night.